Hello and welcome to this edition of Bayou Time. I'm your host, Keith Whiteside, licensed clinical social worker. Thank you for joining us. However you may be joining us, we appreciate it. You know, we always like to turn our attention to the people that know a whole lot more than we do. Always glad to have back with us Tanner Magee. Tanner, thanks for joining us.
No, thanks for having me. My pleasure, for sure.
You know, some of the distinctions you have, Louisiana State Representative, District 53, people know what that is and what it means, but you're also the Speaker Pro Temp. Could you just tell us what that is, what it means, and the honor in that distinction?
Yeah, so I'm the number 2 guy in the House, in the Louisiana House of Representatives. There's a speaker, he's on top of me, and then I'm number 2. It's a job that it makes me have to serve on every committee in some form or fashion.
Wow.
I can't go to all the committees at the same time a lot of times, but I can sit in, I kind of be a liaison point for the speaker. I kind of troubleshoot problems that we're having. I also am in his office suite, so we kind of work together on packages of bills. And a lot of the times, it's kind of up for each speaker pro tem how he's going to define the position. But I run the chamber a lot when the speaker's not there. So if you come into the House, if Clay that's the speaker, if he's in a meeting, like he's often is with whoever,
right?
He's like, Tanner, can you go run the House? And so I'm the one with the gavel in his hand and calling up the bills and doing all the actual mechanical function of running the chamber on a day-to-day basis a lot.
Wow.
So yeah, it's a lot of responsibility, and then each kind of speaker pro tem will kind of redefine the role for himself. And I've tried to make it more Walt Leger was before me. He was really about policy, and he wanted to do these like policy initiatives. I've kind of made it more of like a whip position where I kind of work on the strategy and getting votes lined up to pass the legislation that the speaker would like to carry out, and the Senate president kind of work hand in hand with him as well.
Wow. So very impressive. So congratulations for that, and that, a lot of people just don't know. It echoes the importance of how you feel about being in the know and about knowing what's going on and how it's happening. And speaking of, can you kind of give us a perspective from your end about how we're doing with our hurricane recovery?
It's been slow. I mean, everybody knows it's not been good enough. It's been frustrating. It's been difficult. When you're dealing with an agency like FEMA, you're gonna learn. It's a trial by fire, and you learn on the run. But we have made some progress. We talked about it last time, but I'll go over it again. The state, for the first time, created its own trailer program. It's not waiting on FEMA. A lot of people are confusing the two things together.
Yep, they think they're the same, and
they're the same. And so they'll hear a story like, well, FEMA said they're not putting trailers in Terrebonne Parish, but I saw Joe has a trailer. Well, he probably has a trailer from the state.
Right.
It's all being paid for by FEMA, but it gets really complicated. So to date, the state has 1,000 trailers in Terrebonne Parish.
Wow.
With residents in them. It's not enough.
No, but I mean, but it happened so much faster than if we waited for FEMA. And
right.
That's the big thing.
That's the big thing. That's the important thing. And look, no other state, any disaster, California wildfires, tornadoes have ever done this before. So we really have created a model that hopefully other states can use when a disaster like this happens. They can look at our trailer program and see what we did. And we had some bumps getting there,
right.
But when you have a new program, you will. So, I mean, look, I haven't been pleased with the progress, but I am glad that we are getting people in trailers. I mean, there has been some progress on that front. I'm not sure how many more trailers the state's actually going to buy at this point. I think now it's going to be shifting towards FEMA's actual program.
Right.
And FEMA's trailer program will probably look more like a trailer park situation. They probably don't want to use that phrase, but in reality, that's what it is.
Right. They're going to be consolidated in certain areas, not
Correct.
necessarily at people's homes.
Because FEMA, and the reason why we don't want to use their program as a state too much, they will not put trailers at certain flood elevations.
Right.
They just won't do it. And so we can't make them do it. And
right.
That's why the state can do it and get reimbursed from FEMA on the back, and that's what we're doing. So the state's paying for all these trailers on the front end. I think people should also know that.
Yeah, they're kind of ponying up the money, if you will.
Yes, this is all coming. States put up the money with the expectation one day FEMA's going to reimburse us for it. But anybody knows from FEMA,
and hopefully they won't wait as long as other people are waiting for FEMA benefits. Although the FEMA benefits have been paid out. It's been a relatively extraordinary amount.
Yes.
That they've done, and I know a lot more is needed.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, FEMA is kind of writing some of the checks.
Yes, absolutely. And if you had Gordy on here, he'd tell you that we're still waiting to be reimbursed for some Katrina claims from FEMA that we have never been reimbursed for. You can be strung out a long time. Lake Charles has only seen like a fraction of what they've put out. And you look at the school system over there, I think they're owed still like $100 million from FEMA and haven't gotten any of it. Or like $10 million, they've only gotten like $10 million, something like that. So putting this money out you are looking towards having maybe some cash flow issues when you do, but the state's gonna be fine. But
Right.
that's one of the issues you have.
But taking that risk has been awfully important because of people like you fighting for individuals to get a better housing scenario.
Absolutely. I mean, I've spent countless hours. We've called hearings. We've done everything. Brought everybody, the governor's office to FEMA to task on why haven't we got trailers faster? Why isn't this moving fast enough? Finding out what the problems are. I mean, it takes a lot of effort and a lot, not just me, by everybody. I mean, it's been a full effort. A lot of unrecognized work goes into that by many people.
So, from a secretarial standpoint, y'all have been looking for lots of pairs of scissors to cut through as much red tape as possible.
That's a good way of putting it. Yeah.
Well, and it just, I mean, that's just kind of the way it has to be, finding a way to cut through whatever red tape you can. And again, I don't know that people always understand the difference between what FEMA trailer program is versus the state trailer program is. And it's a good distinction that y'all have had to really have this unprecedented option of the state putting up money to be able to do that, to be able to take care of people that need it. And so it's something so very unique, and it's not perfect, but it got people trailers and housing much sooner than they otherwise would have through the FEMA program.
Yeah, I had to run short on time, but Lake Charles took 8 months to get a trailer from FEMA on their first thing. So when people really don't realize how much work has gotten into us getting to where we are, know that it's not enough. Nobody will ever say it is. But we beat Lake Charles by a lot, and a lot of people worked really hard to make that happen.
1,000 in 4 months versus the first one in 8 months. That's
Yes.
a huge distinction. Tana, thanks again for being here. Of course, state representative and a better explanation of Speaker Pro Tem and all the things that you do very often running the House.
Oh, absolutely. And we were talking about it off camera about how much work goes behind the scenes here. People don't realize what the amount of work that goes in behind the scenes at the Capitol. When we're in session, the amount of staff, the paper, the processing, all that stuff, and there's tons of decisions to be made with that. I've learned it only when I became Speaker Pro Tem did I get to see the amount of efforts to be like, why don't y'all just go do this? I'm like, you have no idea how much work it is to put on a session. So when we have all these special sessions people hear about, it is overtime work for staffers. And these guys are not going home until midnight. I mean, those guys are unsung heroes at the Capitol, and they do all the really hard work that people don't get to see.
Right.
They just see us pressing the buttons and
Right.
having the meetings and stuff like that, but they don't see the staffer does hours of research. When I ask them to, hey, look this up for me, okay?
Right.
And they have to do it, and they go do it.
Right.
And so it's a lot more than people realize.
And the organization that goes into just making sure that everything's working correctly, just to be able to get that information, share it, and the coordination of lobbyists, for lack of a better term, but people like me who go in and say, NASW needs this because this is what we're fighting for, and spending the hours that y'all spend just kind of listening to what the people are asking for.
Absolutely. And then just the kind of mechanical, we've got thousands of people who are coming to the Capitol every day wanting to participate in a hearing, wanting to sit in on a meeting, which they should, and we love to have them. But it takes a lot of work. Security, I mean, just all the making sure the equipment's working when we're in the rooms, everything's recorded. People don't realize this. Every one of our meetings is archived on video, and you can go back from committee to we're on the floor and watch everything that was said. People think that I know people think that everything's happened kind of secretly.
Kind of behind closed doors, if you will.
I'm videoed almost the entire time. I joked that because I was having a meeting. I did one of these faces, and then somebody took a picture of it on their screen and sent it to me. I said, sometimes I forget I'm on camera.
Right. Yeah. And one of those general rules of thumb for us is always assume that the mic is on.
Right. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Speaking of the mic being on, there's a lot of changes coming up. Tell us a little bit about this redistricting that people are really wanting to know about.
So this is the biggest thing in politics in Louisiana that's going to happen for 10 years. It's going to start February 1st. It's going to be a special session, so I'm going to all the staffing. We're ramping up right now, planning it right now, and we're going to meet, and we have to. This is a constitutionally required thing we do every 10 years when we get a new census tract out to make sure that all the districts are populated the right way because people move. And so my district lost like 700 people. Z's district gained like 1,000 people.
Right.
Representative Amade lost a certain amount of people, and that happens throughout all the state. So we have to go and reshuffle and make the districts match again. And it's got to meet constitutional requirements about fairness, and and it can't be gerrymandered to a certain extent. And so it's a lot of work that goes into that. That's what we're about to start in February. We not do it ourselves though. We do Congress.
Right, right.
So I draw, not me personally, but the legislature itself, we're going to draw Steve Scalise's district. You know, people think that's kind of a crazy thing that I'm, you know, kind of drawing lines between him and Garrett Graves. All that stuff is about to happen.
Wow. And quite frankly, there's so much work that goes into making sure it's accurate.
Oh, it's unbelievable. We have software we have to purchase that can define where people are to like the granular level, because you look at the precincts, and everybody votes at a precinct, and we have to know where all those people are. And the federal government, for constitutional requirements, gives us like a standard deviation that, so you can't get it 100%.
Sure.
But we got to be within the standard deviation. And so, you know, North Louisiana lost 80,000 people. And that growth is on the I-10 corridor. So what you see is everybody in Louisiana is moving towards that I-10 corridor. So when they lose 80,000 people, we have to account for that both on the congressional maps. So it means that they currently have two people right now. They're going to come further south to pick up people, or we can make one district and add a southern district. It's kind of the options we're looking at right now. That's Congress, but it's the same thing for state reps. I mean, you lose, that's 2 state reps really. 80,000 people is about 2 state reps in 10 years. So they got to lose 10 people, and we got to find, probably in an area like Ascension needs a new state rep. Those kind of areas where you've seen a lot of population growth, they're going to have to add a spot.
Right. And then you have situations like Ida that hits, and all of a sudden, you know, because I know y'all were planning this redistricting for some time, but Ida hits, and now all of a sudden, there's some major changes to the volume of people that are here. You know, we talked about some of these kids, the student athletes, that their families have just, you know, they lose everything. They got to move.
Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things you saw last time we did redistricting was right after Katrina. So
Katrina, right.
So New Orleans lost a bunch of state reps. They lost a bunch of different things. Their populations bounced back a little bit, so you're going to see them also need to gain back. So you see that's all reflected in the 10-year maps. We're fortunate. I think we'll keep 3. We have 3 state reps now. We'll mostly keep them. It's going to be.
That's good.
It's going to be tight in some of the areas because 2 of the 3, me and Representative Amade, lost people. Z gained, but we have to try and figure out how to make those maps work. And Representative Amade already goes into like St. Mary and Assumption and into Lafourche Parish.
Right.
And so she's probably going to have to. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm just
speculating
that you're going to have to see some shifting for her to pick up population, and I'm going to have to shift too to pick up population. Yeah. And Z's going to have to. Z's district is going to shrink. It's going to get smaller, and mine's going to grow bigger. Which, you know, people don't realize that's a challenge. When you represent a district that's from one end here to another end, so those guys in North Louisiana, I mean, they represent parishes.
Right. The entire parish.
Right.
Instead of just a district.
Just instead of a district. They might have 2 or 3 parishes that they really, you know, 1,000 square miles.
Because of the number of people that don't live necessarily in a district, but that same number that live in a parish.
And then having to meet all those people's needs and travel that district can be a challenge.
You know, there's always, we're talking about dealing with Ida and recovering and where we are and where we stand, talking about this redistricting, which is a really big deal they do every 10 years or so. But there's always so many projects happening. And now with you being the Speaker Pro Temp, you're involved in as many of those things as you physically can.
Absolutely. I mean, look, I've just been doing the Superdome negotiations. I mean, which I thought was interesting that we kind of pushed back on what the governor wanted, and we're going to save the state $30 million on renegotiating the Superdome deal. So, I mean, that was kind of wild. I mean, you grew up a Saints fan, and all of a sudden you're in the room.
Yeah, it's like, am I supposed to be here?
Exactly. And, you know, it's definitely interesting to, we got a better deal for the state, though, so I'm proud of that. But, you know, there's all kind of other stuff going on, you know, road construction projects, other things that every day we're involved in.
Tell me a little bit about this LA1 funding project. This one's been one that's kind of been on the books I've been talking about for quite a while.
Yeah, no, look, I'm very proud of this project. It was my bill that created it. We took some BP economic dollars that were supposed to go somewhere else. We reprioritized them, and we shifted $150 million from the state towards elevating LA1 all the way from Golden Meadow up to, you know, from all the way up. So when you get on the elevator now, it's going to come up to basically Golden Meadow, the new project. And that's, I mean, and you saw for Hurricane Ida, that hurricane evacuation route, huge, right?
Yes.
And we also know that because of Port Fourchon, it's like $100 million a day to the U.S. economy. So when that road is down, we're losing money both on the federal level, state level, and local level here. I mean, people all work out of here. And so we took that $150 million. We applied for what they call an infra grant for the feds. And Scalise and Garrett Graves are both instrumental in kind of shepherding that through that process, and they added about another $150 million to it.
Wow.
So when it's all said and told, it's going to be about $1 billion for this project. When we start adding up private investors, the oil companies themselves have kicked in some money. So it's going to be a huge boon to Port Fourchon because you're not going to have the problem of the road of LA1 going out. It's going to be high enough, level enough so that it can connect to the region for those projects, and in an area of storm, you're going to have access to that project. But it took years in the making. It's not, and then you know really well when federal government, once you design something and it's shovel ready, as they say, you get the money, then they got to redesign the program, then you got to do the permitting, and you got to do everything else. But broken ground, construction starting. In fact, I saw it came to my desk yesterday. $450 million contract to start the construction, phase 1 right now, construction.
Wow.
And you think about the jobs too, just the construction is going to create,
And so you talk about that $100 million that Port Fourchon creates for the national economy and sometimes international economy coming through there. And when you stop that for any reason, it's a bad thing. So that initial $150 million, the matching 150, and getting to $1 billion, that, when you talk about $100 million a day, $1 billion doesn't really seem like that much when it comes to the impact.
It's huge. And look, there's an article that came out in the New York Times. China just put in an order for LNG, liquefied natural gas. America is going to be, because of this order, America is going to be the largest producer of LNG in the world. And that goes where? In Port Fourchon and Cameron. That's the two places in the world, in the United States. So we need to build out both Port Fourchon and Cameron Parish to have the infrastructure needs to meet this, because if you want to see an economy in Louisiana that transitions away from traditional oil and gas but can do something different in the future, it's LNG. And so this is us positioning the state to make those gains, because Fourchon's switching to LNG, Cameron's switching to LNG, Cheniere, all these big things are going to do it. And China's not going to stop their orders. So that's what we want to do. We want these big exploration and exportation projects of LNG. So it's going to be really big for us.
Well, and the other big thing is that, that road didn't start sinking yesterday.
Right.
And so we can't really just get a new road up tomorrow. And so working on those things, and just, again, like we talked about earlier in the segments, all of the work that goes into just getting those things approved, even when you're shovel ready.
Absolutely. And people, we got horrible roads and bridges across the state, but people also don't understand the challenges of building a road and bridge in Louisiana. You're building a road on mud, right?
On sinking mud.
On sinking mud. You can go build a road in West Texas, and it's going to cost you absolutely nothing. There's no trees. It's all flat. You can just go straight line. Boom.
You don't have to go very deep. It's hard ground.
It's hard ground. You're curving. You got to follow the bayous. You got to, and so when you're elevating a highway like we're doing with LA1, the challenges are even greater. So it's it's fun to poke how long it takes us to do things, but there's real challenges there that people have to realize that it's more expensive to build a road in Louisiana because of the challenges that the topography and the geography create than it is in Texas or it is in North Dakota or one of these places that have nothing.
We got 1 minute left. I always want to make sure that people realize how hard you're fighting for them. Just maybe give a little bit of a shout out at this holiday season about what our hope looks like for our future.
You know what? I'm like everybody else. I was discouraged at Ida, and it's hard not to be when you drive around town and see it. But I really do think we have better days ahead of us. The one thing about these challenges is that they're also opportunities. It's an opportunity for us. We're going to have all kind of federal dollars flowing through here. We can rebuild Terrebonne Parish, and we can do it in a way that can have a future. And so I'm excited about it.
Well, Tanner, I appreciate all the updates. I appreciate the explanations. But more importantly, I appreciate the passion with which you do all of your jobs. And being a state representative is not easy. And being so involved is not easy, but it's a blessing to us in our area and certainly for our state in Louisiana that you're fighting for us. So happy holidays and thanks for what you do.
Thank you. Happy holidays to you as well.
I appreciate it. All right, guys, that's Tanner Magee. We appreciate him. And that'll do it for this edition of Bayou Time. Don't go anywhere. A lot more local programming when we continue.